Sabres and their western trip, and All-Star break is on our way. We'll talk about more after this short video. What's up, and welcome to the Sabres Edge podcast presented by Nickel City Mafia. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment to the show. My name is Top Shelf Timmy Corks, and my co-host is Sammy Saucymus. Sammy, how's your past week been?
It's been hectic, to be honest with you. UB classes started up on Wednesday of last week, so I've been back at it for almost exactly a week now. It's kind of weird that it started in the middle of the week, but it was nice. You know, I didn't have anything to do before last week's video, but I got here. I was literally just watching a lecture video maybe like 3 minutes ago or like 5 minutes ago. So it's become more hectic.
Nice. Are you still in like those giant lecture halls with like 300, 500 people with those classes still, or are you in the smaller classes?
A lot of my classes are online right now, actually. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But when I am on campus, it's a lot of smaller classes, but they're like sections of bigger online classes. So
okay, nice. I mean, it's weird because I remember when I was going, at least when I was in college, that we started up like the day right after Martin Luther King's Day. It's interesting that they're starting up a little bit later nowadays. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So yeah, I guess we got some Sabres hockey to talk about. The Sabres came back from the westward trip. Just to do a little quick little recap, the Sabres lost to the Ducks, which was very surprising, 4-2. Team came out looking out flat. In that game, we had Greenway getting a goal, Okposo getting a goal. UPL saved 32 of 35 shots, and we had actually a .914 save percentage, which really isn't that too bad. That's all we're asking for out of them.
Yeah.
Following up with that, we had a win against the Kings 5-3. Now, if you tuned out of that game when it was down 2-0 in the first period, I don't blame you. But they did come back and win, and the kids line had a very good game. Quinn had a goal, 2 assists. Cousins had a goal, 2 assists, and Peterka had 2 goals and 1 assist. In that game, Levi had a 31 out of 30, or saved 31 out of 33 shots at a .925 save percentage. And then just to wrap up the road trip right before All-Star break, the Sabres won against the Sharks 5-2. Now, once again with the Sabres, like this whole entire season, went down 2-0 early in the game. Managed to come back once again, kind of thanks to the kids line of game with Peterka getting 2 goals, Cousins getting 1 goal, Quinn actually getting an assist. I actually didn't look down to see what UPL save percentage was in that game. I think this is the only one I do the stats for.
He was a .920 save percentage.
.920 save percentage. But there is one takeaway from that game. We'll talk about that. Is that we can't have nice things this year with Quinn getting injured. So, Sammy, take it away. What are your thoughts from that Western road trip?
So, overall, the Western road trip, pretty good. We see the emergence of the kids line once again, and obviously we'll talk about that. They really started clicking, and it looked great. Their line was really carrying us along, and that's a helpful thing because we really haven't been getting that much offense. We obviously started a lot of the games slow. We went down first in every single one of them. Sometimes we were down by 3. It's like in the Kings game, we ended up coming back. In the Sharks game, we were down by 2. I made a comment about that in the Nickel City Mafia Discord, where I was just like, man, I cannot believe we're down 2-0 to the Sharks. It hurts my soul watching this.
Yeah.
We come out with 2 of the 3 wins, and what I ended off last week with was I just want to see us continue to win more than we lose. And you look at the schedule ahead of us, and you're like, okay, so that's the Ducks and the Sharks. We lose against the Ducks. And I was like, well, this is not going great. We still ended up with the 4 of the 6 points that I was asking for. So I guess I don't really have much room to complain there. One thing that I would like to also apologize for last week is that I said that we had a game today and that we'd be casting through a game. I looked on the schedule, said there was a game Tuesday. Obviously, I was a little frazzled and I did not check what the actual date was, but that is next week, Tuesday, because this week is the All-Star break.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of jumped on that early. I think we were looking at both at this calendar, and the calendar just showed a Tuesday. We're like, oh yeah, we got
like, yeah, it's Tuesday. But
yeah,
jumping the gun a little bit, we do have the All-Star break.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of nice to have a little bit of a break right now, just to get away from the Sabres a little bit, and then some things are going on. But overall, I mean, yeah, it was a good Western trip. I mean, do you feel like the games were like convincing winning? Like, did you feel like the energy from the team at all, or do you feel like they kind of slogged through all 3 of those games?
So the Anaheim game, which was after our show last week, was kind of brutal. I watched that one. I'm like, we came out sloppy and we ended sloppy. It was just we had a little bit of jump towards the end, I believe it was, but it was like far too little, far too late. Yeah, so we got 2 goals in that last period. So we brought it to 3-2 actually. The game against the Kings, we did it again. We came out way too slow. We clearly were not playing at the level that we know that we can play. And I don't know if it was just, it's been a long West Coast trip. It happens. You get fatigued towards the end. But we stepped onto that ice in Los Angeles, and we looked like we could have been the worst team in the league. We turn it around. We end up winning. Devin Levi shuts the door after the first period, which was very helpful because after the 3rd goal in the first period, I was like, I don't know. Do you pull the guy? Like it's not all his fault, but you hope he has at least like one of those.
Yeah.
But he shorted up. He closed the gates after that, ended up with like a good save percentage too. And then again in San Jose, how do you go down 2-0 against the Sharks? So it's just this like, we're having issues with we just keep running into issues with slow starts. And I don't know how you solve that problem. And I hope that it maybe a good mental reset after an All-Star break helps with that. But you can't drop 2 goals to teams first and then expect to win 2/3 of your games. That's like, kind of lucky. So I don't know. I'm not fully convinced by these points that we're winning 2/3 of the games, but we'll take them at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore. Does the team just need to get like a punch in the face to get going in the game? What's going on here? I mean, they come out slow in every one of those games, and then finally they come back towards the end. Like, I don't know. Do they feel like they just need that nervous anxiety to kind of get the team going and kind of get some goals in the net? But don't you want to start off fast and start the pace of play right at the beginning of the game? It just doesn't make any sense with this team, and it's just a theme that's been going on through the whole entire season. And why is this a thing? I don't think anyone can answer that. It's just the mentality at this team at this point. I don't know if they like playing from behind, but that's what they prefer to do. So yeah, it's kind of just been a weird, tumultuous season. And I mean, it's good to see, the goalies performing, they're still playing up to like above 900 save percentage. And just to see the team to come back too, it's good that they're able to battle back from adversity, but I would like for them to start putting other teams at adversity and just getting goals early and kind of setting the pace of play. So it's kind of been a weird season overall. Just going to go to the chat real quick. Tom, it's been a while. Thanks for hopping on. It's nice seeing you. Got anything to contribute to the show? Let us know. Mike, yeah, nice to see 2 out of 3 on the West Coast trip. It's good to see you too. And then, yes, Mike, I'm on a different setup right now. So I was having computer issues. So right now I am working through my AirPods and my iPad. So no regular mic that I used to have. So if I sound a little different, um, sorry about that. And sorry you got like the 4K HD of this beautiful mug right here.
I don't know what you're talking about. It is lovely. You look great today.
So yeah, thanks for joining the show, guys. And then next week I'll be better. I'm starting off slow like the Sabres today,
Yeah.
or at least my computer is. So yeah, I guess like the biggest news that came out of that road trip is the Jack Quinn injury. So I think we kind of talked about it last week. Just with like what's going on with the Sabres and them deciding to do like these spin moves by the boards, and as they're turning their back, other players are just checking them from behind and getting away with these kind of, I wouldn't say they're dirty hits, but they're kind of like almost on teetering on the line right there, type of hits. And now we kind of lose our best player right now in Jack Quinn. Sam, what are you thinking? What did you think of that hit overall?
The hit wasn't that bad. To be honest, you watch the hit again, it's not that bad. It's not really that dirty. He kind of just shoves Jack a little bit. Jack loses his balance. He falls, and it's the awkward fall that really does it. He gets his leg caught between the boards.
Yeah.
I don't think that the hit was that bad. I don't think that it really would require any disciplinary action. You could maybe argue it was a cross-checking penalty, but like 2 minutes at most, you're really not looking at anything that bad. It was not a dirty or malicious hit. So it was just kind of a freak fall. And you see the moment that it torques and you're like, ooh, his leg got caught and that was bad. And you see him on the ground, like the way that he's acting, like he knows it's bad. It's just an unfortunate situation.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, it's kind of funny because we've kind of been seeing like these type of hits that have been going on where, the Sabres players' backs are to the other team. They're getting hit from behind. And a lot of them is due to the players doing it to themselves, where like they're setting themselves up to get hit like that, which is unfortunate. And it's something that I guess I learned it early in hockey. Is just don't have your back to the guy when you're up against the boards.
Right.
So it's very frustrating, especially too because once Quinn joined the lineup, the Sabres were 9-7-1 record wise. So they actually had a winning record with Quinn in the lineup, and I'm pretty sure he was almost at a point per game pace since he joined the Sabres too. And like the third thought is the kids line started heating up on this West Coast road trip. I mean, in that second game against the Kings, Quinn had 3 points, Cousin had 3 points, Peterka had 3 points, and then you go into the second game and Cousin scores again and gets 2 assists, and Peterka gets 2 goals. And this was a line that was kind of in malaise and didn't have like a home before Quinn joined them. And once Quinn joined the lineup, you can kind of see what he brings to not only that line but just the lineup in general. And just to lose him again is just devastating because this is like something that we were looking forward into this lineup. So yeah, right now I know the news says he's going to be out for about 8 weeks. He just had surgery the other day.
Yep.
They haven't said what type of injury, but it's not going to be you didn't break his ankle. I know that, and he didn't do anything with his knee. I'm just thinking it was either a high ankle sprain or if anything it was a fracture of the fibula, which is usually one of those that heals a little bit faster. So I guess, Sam, did you have any more thoughts on the Jack Quinn and his impact on the team, and what are we going to do going forward? I guess you have any answers to that?
So what do you do going forward that is the great question, right?
Yeah.
You lose Jack Quinn for 8 weeks. One of the weeks is going to be the All-Star break, so like that's something. You don't really. I'm not sure whether or not you want to replace him at this point, because are you then looking towards being like, if you're saying we're going to go out and buy someone now to replace Jack Quinn, you're announcing beforehand, before you're even at a positive record, that you're a buyer for this season. If anything, like, I don't know. I don't want to say sack the season, right? I don't want to be like, all right, just like bring up like Yuri Kulik and give him NHL time just for the sake of it. If he's not there, if you guys don't feel like he's comfortable or like ready for an NHL level, I wouldn't force that right now. So I don't know. It's such a complicated question, and it has many implications. Do you just pick up another stopgap guy? Because if you do that, I mean, like we have that in the AHL right now. We have Tyson Yost. You know, you have some guys on the bench, like you got Victor Olofsson, who's not playing every game. Maybe he just fills in the lineup and you just call it a day. But it depends on what your intentions are. If you think that you genuinely have a chance to make the playoffs, which you're not technically out right now, like there is still a chance. If you think that you have a good chance at making the playoffs, or if you want to make a push, if you want to tell the team like, hey, I know this just happened, but we are still competitive and we can still make a push, you should go out and get someone. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how high end you want to go with who you go out and get, but that's something to consider, I guess, for the team. What would you do in this situation?
Honestly, my mind was kind of trying to build up the value of Olofsson heading into the trade deadline, just because right now he might not have much trade value. And maybe if we get him in that line and he gets some points and he starts scoring, maybe we can get something out of him. That was just my only thought for him, because I do not want to see Tyson Yost back up in this lineup. I'm sorry, man. You're very below average NHL player. I mean, you're a fourth liner at best, so I just don't want you playing that line. I mean, I guess you could bring Zach Benson up into the second line and see what he can do there, but I mean, he hasn't been putting up many points I don't think he put a point up for the past 12 games. I think the season is catching up to him. I think he's kind of, getting that. He might be getting a little tired. I don't know what's going on. And I don't want to put many more minutes onto him either. It's his rookie year, and I mean, just have him play on that third line with I think Greenway and Middlestat at this point, and just see where that goes.
That's been a good line for us too.
Yeah, exactly. So let him grow there. You don't want him getting second line minutes. And then, once you get to the trade line, and if you're the trade deadline and you're able to trade Olofsson, that's when you can kind of consider bringing up somebody for the stopgap until Quinn is back. So I just kind of go over the prospects right now. I was kind of looking at the Amherst. I mean, you have Isak Rosen. He's at 26 points. He's leading the Amherst with Rusek. He has 10 goals, 16 assists in 34 games. Then you have Yuri Kulik, 24 points, 16 goals, 8 assists in 30 games. So maybe you give one of those two guys another shot up here. Obviously, you don't want to give him second line minutes, but maybe like rotating him in with somebody else at that point until Quinn comes back. But no, I honestly, I don't want the Sabres to be a buyer for the short term. If they're going to be a buyer, and we're going to talk about this a little bit, I want them going after a guy that they're going to have for a little bit. They're going to have him under contract term. So, that's kind of my mindset. Let's just put Olofsson in there, get his value up.
All right. Mike believes that maybe we should get someone and make the playoffs, never give up a season. For the most part, I would like to believe that should be the case. But I think there's too many variables and we're down too far right now that I don't know. There might be value in like getting Olofsson's value up or getting some of the AHL guys some NHL experience at this point in the season. But
yeah, even if they make the playoffs, let's just say they happen to make the playoffs. How long are they really going to last in the playoffs, and what are they giving up to get a guy to play at that point? Because if you're gonna try to replace someone with Quinn's, production, you're going to be giving up a little bit more, and there's not going to be a lot of teams that are going to want to give up prospects that are at that kind of offensive level. So,
I mean, I think you can probably, on an individual level, I think like Quinn's production can be replaced and replicated. I don't know what about Jack Quinn does it, but he just makes those other two players click. For the majority of the season, when Cousins and Peterka have been together, it just feels like they're just flailing out there and they haven't any idea how to play the game of hockey as a team sport. But all of a sudden you insert Jack Quinn in there and it's like, he wasn't even a point a game. He was way below. He had 12 points in 17 games. but he activates those other two guys. Like, I don't know. Again, I don't know what it is, but he's got something magic in the way he plays where he tends to just get the best out of the people around him. And that is what's going to be missed, not his individual production, I think, at least.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, him and Paterka have been together for almost 4 years at this point, playing on the same line. So there's something going on there. And, I think it brings a lot too that Cousins started picking up in the past couple of games. I'm sure he's building up confidence at this point, and to lose Quinn, that's not going to be helpful. There's some people saying that Quinn might just be a guy that gets constantly injured. I kind of want to squash that right now. He's had 2 freak injuries. Yeah. He had the Achilles tear, which happened during training and the offseason, and then he just happenstance to get this injury. It was just a freak play. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. It's not like he's getting concussions or he's having muscle soreness or anything like that. It was just 2 freak accidents. I don't think he has an injury bug. So yeah, I just want to squash this right now.
To that, I would say watch the video and where he got injured. Any human being would have torn or broken something in that position. That it's not. It was happenstance. It's not like, oh yeah, something about like with Samuelson where it's like the most innocuous things seem to break him. With Jack Quinn, you watch that video again, you watch that play. That wasn't some like, oh, I don't even know how you would get hurt there. No, you can very clearly see what would have broken or damaged a body part in that clip.
Yeah. So I just want to put that to rest. I mean, don't start saying that about Jack Quinn. I mean, he's going to be a future star on this team, so everyone just chill out. So to kind of just wrap up the road trip, I kind of want to get on with our 3 stars early in this show.
Okay.
So who do you have as your 3 stars for this road trip?
I'm just going to give it to the whole Jack Quinn line.
Yeah.
You got Dylan Cousins, JJ Paterka, Jack Quinn, all putting up great performance in the past 3 games. Maybe not the Anaheim game, but that I think we can all agree we would rather forget. And even during that game, Dylan Cousins did have an assist. So,
yeah. I'm just gonna go ahead and join you on that because that's what I was gonna say. Special props to UPL and Levi having a good road trip as well. But, the kids line, all 3 of those guys deserve a star. So I'm going to hand that off to them. So, yeah, we'll kind of wrap up the road trip with that. And then to kind of go back to the trade deadline. And we'll talk about there's some news coming out of Columbus about David Jiricek. So David Jiricek, he's a 2002 6th-round draft pick of the Columbus Blue Jackets. He's a right-handed shot D, so very rare to find in the NHL right now. It's like finding a leprechaun or a pot of gold or a rainbow, double rainbow. Sorry. So he played his first pro season in the AHL in Cleveland, and he came up for about 4 NHL games. This is going to be his second year. And in his second year playing of Columbus, he's had about 35 games. And he got sent down recently, and he's not too happy with what's going on. He thinks he doesn't deserve to be in the AHL. He should be an NHL player. And his stats in the AHL kind of prove that. He's been an all-star. So in the AHL, he's had 7 goals, 40 assists in 59 games, which overall, that's pretty well for a defenseman.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And hearing and listening to podcasts talking about him, he has an offensive prowess, but he is a 6'3", 200-pound defenseman who has solidified his game in the defensive zone and has a little bit of physicality with him. And just to go real quick, in the 40 games that he's played in the NHL, he's had 40 goals played. He's had 1 goal and 8 assists, so 9 points overall, which, to play on the Columbus Blue Jackets and have any sort of point production as a defenseman, I mean, that's pretty good overall. So I'm not going to harp on his stats too much. So yeah, essentially he's not too happy with Columbus, and he hasn't outright said he wanted to be traded, but he's at the point where it's like, I want to play in the NHL. If I'm not going to be playing in the NHL, I want to go somewhere else. And a lot of people, Chad D. Dominicus has brought up, this would be this almost be a perfect situation for the Sabres. Do you have any thoughts on this trade at all?
Yeah. So I don't think I've ever heard Chad's name pronounced, but I don't know that it's that. I always thought it was Denominenses, but I could be very wrong.
I don't know
Either
either.
way, to the actual trade idea, I think it's a good idea. I am of the opinion that you can't really go wrong with that. He's a 20-year-old. He's a right shot defenseman. I don't know where you would put him in our current lineup, but I'm not sure that you want someone you're probably getting rid of Eric Johnson at the trade deadline. So where would that leave us? We would have Samuelson Dahlin as just like a number one. We'll say Juracek and Power as your number two. And then you have Henry Yokiharu, Connor Clifton, and Ryan Johnson as your 5, 6, 7. Obviously, he was sent down for a reason. He is maybe borderline AHL, NHL right now, and he won't be for his whole career. He's a 20-year-old. We have to remember, defensemen, they can take a second. Owen Power, he's 21. Just have to give it some time. We're even though Owen Power won't be sent down this year, and he has way more point production than Juracek during this year, it's still a little bit we have to wait for him to mature. And if you add another young defenseman to that already young defense core, that includes Ryan Johnson, Owen Power, and then theoretically Juracek, there's going to be a bunch of growing pains that fans are not going to like. But in the long run, if you can get David Juracek for cheap, I think that would be a great move. And obviously, we're assuming that the price tag would have gone down because of the discontent that he might be experiencing with Columbus and with that organization if they're trying to just quickly move him because he doesn't want to play for them. But, and also you have to manage the fact that once he comes here, he's still maybe a tweener at the moment. And you might have to deal with the fact that you might want to send him down, but if you make that trade, you're not allowed to. That's kind of the rules with this. Like, if you make that trade, you're telling him that you are going to play in the NHL from now until the end of time. And if you're trying to win right now, that might not be the best option. So in the long run, I do think that David Juracek is a good option. I think that he would grow in a great fashion along with some of the other young defensemen that we have for this team. Again, I don't know what they're going to want for him and what the discounted price would look like. The sticker price is probably very expensive. That is a highly touted defenseman. And as you said, the right shot defensemen, they're not exactly a dime a dozen. So again, I think it all just depends on what are they asking for, and does it make sense for our timeline? If we're trying to win right now, he's not a guy that you want. If you think that he helps you grow into the future, then absolutely, that's a guy that you want. But
yeah, it's almost like you have to have a handshake agreement with him that, hey, if you're going to get traded here, I guess he doesn't have to accept the trade, but still, if he's going to come over here, it's, hey, we're going to have you play out the rest of the year in the Amerks, and we're going to bring you up next year. Just because, like you mentioned, there's so many guys right now. Like, if you get rid of Eric Johnson, you still already have a lot of defensemen still up in Buffalo. Where, Bryson was just on the West Coast trip and he was getting starting minutes.
We do have some injuries, so there is that.
Yeah, but yeah, you have, I guess you have to kind of even try to figure out how much of a future Jokiharju has on this team as well. It's nothing against Jokiharju. It's just the way that he's played right now. And it doesn't seem like Granado or the organization is like a big fan of him, whereas he's had a pretty solid season. I can almost see Jokiharju getting traded away at the deadline as well, which I don't really want to see. But, I'm going to keep that in the front of my mind just because of the way that is usage right now. But I mean, overall, when I was reading this story by Chad, whatever his last name is, um, he's kind of correct that the Sabres don't really have much when it comes to defensive prospects. I mean, you have Maxim Strobik, who's playing in. Is he at Michigan State right now? I believe.
He did have a pretty good World Juniors, though.
He did. And then besides that, the only really guy that you have down in the Amherst is Nikita Novikov, which he is like your traditional like stay-at-home defenseman. He's actually having a pretty good season right now with the Amherst too, because he has 1 goal, 12 assists. And I know plus minus isn't really indicative or anything, but he is a plus 11 in 32 games. So, and
That's
this is his
good.
rookie. Yeah, it's his rookie year in the AHL too.
And he's also like 19.
Yeah,
that is a young defenseman.
Mm-hmm. So that's really, those are out of like all of their. I mean, I'm sure there's other defensive prospects besides, but out of all of them, those are really the two to look forward to who may have a chance to play in NHL. The rest there really isn't much. The cupboard's kind of bored or empty, especially with Ryan Johnson in the NHL now. So, I mean, if you have to give up one of our offensive prospects, I know people are talking about giving up Savoy. The Columbus Blue Jackets don't want Savoy. Might have to be giving up Yuri Kulik or Isaac Rosen or Oslin. I mean, at this point, the Sabres are so full with offensive talent. If it only takes one of those guys to get a defensive prospect who, he seems pretty promising right now, performing in the AHL, I think it's overall worth it just to have in the system at this point.
Again, I think that his discontent comes with him being in the AHL. Like you said you'd have to have the handshake agreement that he'd be okay playing in the AHL this year. I don't think that's where he is. But we do have the injuries right now. So, with Bryson in the NHL currently, maybe you could push him back to the A. And while we're talking about it, I'd just like to point out Bryson's stats for the year, which are great. So he's played 5 games this year. He has 0 goals and 0 assists for 0 points total. He's a -4, and he has been in 5 games in which we win. So the Sabres have currently won every single game that Jacob Bryson has played in, despite him having negative impacts on the ice.
I mean, that's so totally Bryson. That is a Bryson right there.
Again, we were talking.
I don't know what response to that is.
We were talking about it when he got sent down earlier in the year. That maybe the reason he was kept around is because he's just such a good team guy,
But he has to be on the ice for them to win, right? He can't be a locker room guy. He has to be on the ice too. He's got to be sitting on the bench.
Yeah. And we do win when he's there.
I mean, that's kind of a pickle that we're in right now.
Yeah, we're 5-0 with Jacob Bryson. He might be the best defender in the NHL.
Even a little bit of the -4.
That's the fun thing about stats. If you cherry pick them just right, you can make the greatest narratives.
You really can. I mean, Bryson looks. I mean, he's earning his $1 million contract right now. I guess, right? Because we have 5 wins with him in the lineup. So, I mean, that's really the only other news that are going on before the All-Star break that I've seen. Have you seen anything at all when it comes to the Sabres?
I mean, there's like kind of big news around the league. It doesn't really pertain to the Sabres, and that's the World Junior team from like 6 years ago now. They're finally like calling to charge some individuals in London. I think Dylan Dubé is one of them. Carter Hart's probably the most notable. There were 2 from
Calfoot and
Miles Wood from New Jersey.
Yeah.
And so that's going on. I really kind of don't want to talk about that. If you've read the story already, it's kind of gross, kind of uncomfortable, and it happened 6 years ago now. I'm glad that they're finally getting around to like getting those charges pressed, but it's disgusting. They're those are 5 horrible people. And honestly, it sounds like there were more people on that team that did partake and or not partook, but like were there and didn't really say anything or do anything. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of just upsetting.
It's London, Ontario, not
London, Ontario. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Not a.
I feel like not to make light of the situation, but I feel like you have to indicate London, Ontario, and not just because everything's saying London. I'm like,
Right.
did they play the World Juniors in London at all? I was thinking, I know because the UK has a hockey team now, and they're competing in I think in the IHF, but they're not competing in the Olympics yet. Maybe the Olympics soon, but I
Right.
mean they're getting into hockey, so that's the only reason why I have to bring up from that story. So yeah, um, yeah, it's kind of quiet leading into the All Star break. I mean, I think I talked to you about in our chat, like talking about like awards for the Sabres, and after I sent that, and I didn't send it in the chat, I was like, is there anyone worthy of an award on this team right now? Is Bryson the MVP of this on the Sabres right now? Does he get the Hart Trophy?
I mean, there's certainly conversations we had, and like just kind of the basic superlatives. Like you could go over like, who do you think has been the best offensive player for us this year?
Who do I think?
Yeah.
Overall, it has to be Casey Middlestat. He's just having a solid overall season in terms of points production, and I mean, I would say he's almost the most. Even though he started off towards the end of the season, he has to be one of the most improved Sabres on the team as well. Just because he's just, I mean, he's doing everything. He's hard to knock off the puck. He's helping out his other teammates. And you mentioned a couple of weeks ago, when we were talking about is he on this team at the trade deadline coming up. I mean, he's just a plug and play player. He could play on any of the top 3 lines and make those 3 lines better. So that probably has to be the best player offensively for this team.
I'm gonna have to agree with you there. I mean, Casey Middlestat has just been an absolute monster for us at 5v5 this year. And he's really because we've actually been a pretty good 5v5 team. We've had some questionable special teams.
Yeah.
Actually, our penalty kill's been pretty good, but we've had questionable power play. And as far as production goes, he has been at the top of our roster out there just creating points. And not only that, but like some of our other point getters like Jeff Skinner, you can't trust him in your own zone. Casey Middlestat, he can do it. He can defend. He can win board battles. He really does it all. Jack of all trades. And he's by far, in my opinion, our best offenseman to this point this year.
Yeah, for sure. I guess, going back to the conversation we had a couple of weeks ago, I really don't see them. I actually don't see the Sabres trading him at all at the trade deadline. I think they're going to let this run into the offseason with his RFA contract to kind of see what type of deal they'll get him in the next couple of years. I mean, I don't want to see the guy leave. He plays pretty well. I kind of like to see if they can somehow finagle a deal to get Jeff Skinner off the team, and that's just for financial purposes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be okay with that. I would love to see him continue on next year, but I don't know what they're doing with the cap or how they're going to make it work, but I would love it if Casey is a part of the plan going forward.
Yeah. Do you have a player that you would say is the best defensively on this team? Is it that obvious?
We have kind of one stud defenseman and a bunch of ones that are still trying to figure it out right now. So the obvious answer for best defenseman, at least in my opinion, Rasmus Dahlin. I was maybe about to just say
Eric Johnson.
Yeah, maybe gonna Connor Clifton. Yeah, there's honestly Connor Clifton figuring it out. Eric Johnson is a steady presence. Ryan Johnson, seems like he's got a good future ahead of him. So there are some good things going on with the defense, but it hasn't all been good. That's for sure. Yeah, but Rasmus Dahlin, obviously, he can do it all. Kind of like Casey Middlestat. He's a more commanding presence than Casey is. He's willing to really throw big hits. He does crazier moves as well. When he is feeling it, when he's feeling his game, it is a different level than what you get when Casey Middlestat is feeling his game, which is more of a attention to detail kind of thing. Rasmus Dahlin can really change the tide of games, and it's really entertaining when he chooses to do so. But even when he's not doing so, his just like average level of play is, in my opinion, still better than what we get night in, night out from most of the defensemen on the team. So for me, it's got to be Rasmus Dahlin.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything more to add to that. I mean, you have a young defensive core overall, and you have some promising players, like you mentioned. Ryan Johnson's promising. You still have Owen Power as a first overall pick. He's still got to grow. And who knows if Yoki Haru's still on this team too? He's been trending upwards, and then Clifton. I mean, not the most satisfying season that you've had, but like you said, he's still trying to find his way into the system, and I think we've kind of figured out he's going to be your third pair defenseman. So it's just kind of finding a partner with that, and Eric Johnson, like you mentioned, steadying the ship. But I don't see him being on this team past the trade deadline. So yeah, I mean, any other awards to give away to this team at all?
I mean, obviously, when we started the season, there was going to be a jostling for like starting goaltender, as we had 3 goalies on the roster. That's kind of been sorted out. So I would like to give an honorable mention to Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. You're a number 1 goalie now. Congratulations. That was not obviously going to be the case when we started the year. So that's a kind of nice revelation to have come across. And I think that he definitely deserves some sort of mid-season accolade for that. You're a number 1 goalie. Congratulations, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen.
Yeah, congrats. I mean, he surprised all of us. I was trying to trade him away at the beginning of the preseason, so he showed me up. So good on him, and keep on rolling, man. We'll take this into next year with hopefully 2 good goaltenders. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of been. I mean, overall, I was hoping this would be more of an exciting Sabre season. We have a lot more to talk about, but who knows? I mean, next, second half of the year, they could turn it all on, and who knows? We could maybe be talking playoffs, but
all it takes is a 16-game win streak, and then you're right back in it, right, Edmonton?
I was supposed to say, what is Edmonton on right now?
I think it's 16 right now.
And the record's 17, right?
The record is 17, yeah.
Oh, that stinks that they have to try to carry this over from the All-Star break.
Right. Speaking of carrying things over from the All-Star break, we currently have 2 wins. If we win again, we got our first 3-game win streak. And I think that the All-Star game is helpful for us because it helps us reset. It's not like we just won a game, which we like to lose immediately after. So maybe we can get our first 3-game win streak of the year with the help of with a conveniently placed All-Star break.
Yeah. I mean, do we catch one on the Dallas Stars? That's my only question on there.
I think so. Game, I think we got it. Yeah, it is a home game.
Okay. Well, I don't think that matters. I think they're home and away.
Yeah.
Almost identical.
By the way, I do have another possible midseason award. Who do you think was the best pickup for the Sabres this year? We had the 2 defensemen, Clifton and Johnson, and we also got Eric Robinson. I believe that's the only 3 we had.
I mean, Eric Robinson had those 2 good games, and then just kidding. I gotta say, I'm gonna go with Eric Johnson. Not because he's not flashy, he hasn't really done anything, but more of like the steady presence and kind of like bringing that little bit more of a veteran leadership to the team that maybe Poso isn't bringing. So, how much of a difference has he made to this team? I don't know. But I don't think he has very tough competition between the other 2. I don't know. I mean,
for the first time, I'm going to pick someone other than you. I finally get the Connor Clifton pickup.
Okay.
So the first 20 games of his season were bad. They were not good. If you look at historical data for players getting picked up by new teams and acclimating to new systems, it can take like roughly 20-ish games for them to really fit into their system. Since then, like in the past, like 28 games, so like in equal sample size, he's been good. Not like no asterisk. He's just been good. He actually, I believe, has figured it out in a way where he can be productive on our roster. And I don't like watch him every night and I'm like, he's killing us out here. He has like he messes up occasionally and he still does that thing where he'll find himself out of position to make a big hit that probably wasn't necessary. But by and large, he's pretty effective at creating rush opportunities for the team. He's actually okay at like shutting down rush opportunities against. He's pretty good on the penalty kill. He's not elite, but he does the job well. Our penalty kill hasn't been the problem this year, and he's part of that.
Yeah.
I actually, in the last like 28, 30 games, I've been happy with his performance.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the Greenway situation where, towards the end of last year, we're kind of figuring out what is Greenway's place on this team. So I think, like you mentioned, it takes a little bit of time for a player to grow into a new system, and he's finally catching on. And I think the Sabres kind of figured out where he was too, just because I think their expectation was him to play as a second pair defenseman at the beginning of the season, and they came to find out maybe this guy's like a third pair defenseman who can maybe play second pair every once in a while. So yeah, I mean, I really haven't been hunkering down on him in terms of like bad reasons. Like I don't think I've complained about him since November, maybe. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like it's like a cornerback in football. If you're not noticed, then you're pretty much having a good game. If you're playing defense and you're not noticed for bad things, you're probably playing pretty good. And that's all I'm going to say. I mean, was the contract situation with him a little bit like it's not satisfying? I mean, people can complain about that. I would say so. Like, I wouldn't, fight when someone's saying, it was a good contract or a bad contract. I mean, but sometimes you got to take shots, and who knows? I mean, maybe he gets better next year. He's still a young guy figuring out the system, and this is his first time. I mean, this is his first time playing consistently as the pair defenseman, right? Because he was a seventh defenseman in Boston. Right?
No. Last year he was not a seventh defenseman in Boston. He was consistently in the lineup.
I thought he was seventh, and he was only in because of the injuries on defense.
No, he was in, and he was doing. He played 78 games last year.
Really?
And 60 the year before that. So he's been,
right.
Yeah. And he's 28, so he's not even that young.
I mean, 28 something to me. I'm 32, Sam. I mean, he's in the prime of his career, right?
Yeah, you like the contract takes him to like 31. That's perfectly fine. You're getting some good years there, assuming he stays good. But
all right, yeah, no, I like that pick. I mean, out of the three pickups, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not like we ended up with an absolute all-star on our hands. Like it is what it is. It's 7 or 6 defense, 2 6 defensemen, and the fourth line player. So So
yeah, I know Sam, you had something else to share with the channel tonight. So
yeah, I mean, this is so it's. Obviously we have the All-Star break this week, so not much going on. Figured it'd be a good opportunity. And while we're talking about defensive systems with Connor Clifton adjusting to this one, I feel like it'd be a good opportunity to break out the chalkboard and talk about something that we've kind of alluded to for a while, but never really got into detail. And it's, what is Don Granato's defensive system and why isn't it working? So this is a specific, let me just pull up my screen. It's not just a moment. Sorry. So, all right. Can you see what I'm looking at here?
Yeah.
With a little like ice sheet. Yes. This is, I'm going to go over what we do when we have like a rush chance against, specifically in a 2-on-2 situation, because this is a very common rush that you'll see, and you can watch it during the game. A lot of the times, I only ever notice that this is happening because Darlene will make aggressive hand signals to whoever is with him. And so it kind of points out that this is happening. So basically, in a situation where you have two forwards bearing down on your defense for a rush chance, so, F1, F2, going towards your net, the way that we play defense is called surfing, or the way that we defend rushes is called surfing. So what would happen is, say F1 has the puck. We would have the second defenseman curl around to take the spot where the first defenseman was, and we'd have the first defenseman kind of shift into the area that's being vacated by the second defenseman. What this does is, in theory, as the forward one moves in with the puck, defenseman 2 can meet him with speed. And then obviously defenseman 1's crossing over to then cut off this pass option that is coming into the zone. Now, the issue with that is, if we do this every time, which we mostly do, if you watch our play, whenever there's like a 2-on-2 rush against, we are oftentimes doing this little crossover here. And as I've kind of stopped it here with the crossovers happening, you can see that it just kind of creates space where you have either a pass option available to your second forward here, like they either have the space vacated by defenseman 2, or forward 1 kind of gets a lot of space opened up around if they want to just take it into the zone. They don't get pushed too aggressively right away. Like they have time once this crossover happens where they can analyze the play. It just gives them a moment to think about what they're doing. I think it's mostly unproductive because it gives kind of that gap where you can say, hey, I have forward 2 who's going to be open for a brief moment of time, or I can just take it into the corner myself. Yes, this person's defenseman 2 is going to be pressing you faster than defenseman 1 could, because, you're crossing over, you're approaching with speed. But if you just kind of turn to the outside, if you take this opportunity and you move to the outside, now you can wait for more reinforcements. Yeah, maybe the rush was killed, but you just gave up kind of like free, unpressured, or like free entry into the zone. You've just pushed them to the outside more. Or if they do manage to, if you don't execute the crossover perfectly, F2, if they see the gap, they can just sprint through, and now you have a sauce pass through the seam. And that happens to us way more often than is probably acceptable. I just don't see the value in the system. It's a cool thought. It's a unique way to approach it, and it's fun because we are the only team that does it. And I even think it was probably an acceptable experiment, as when we first started doing it, I think it caught teams off guard. But now that we do it every single time, now that it's known, now that people have the playbook, you just have to wait for that moment where the crossover is incomplete, or if they don't step at the exact same time, you're giving up gaps. And so I think without perfect execution, which, is hard to do, instead of the theory of getting closer, or of approaching them with speed when they're entering the zone, you're really just creating gaps in your defensive coverage. And that's why I personally am of the belief that you should probably just do what every other team in the league does and continue pressuring F1 with D1 and F2 with D2. Just cover the pass with the one defenseman and just kind of keep the other guy at bay. Don't let him get a good shot off, and trust that your other defenseman is going to make sure that no pass can be completed. Every other team in the league does it like this. I think this would be a good mix-up every once in a while if Darlene or whoever is on the back end is sitting there and they're like, I don't think that I can, I don't think I've managed my gap well, and I want the other person to kind of switch with me. I think having that in your toolbox is actually helpful. Making that your primary tool is predictable.
Yeah.
So that's like, in football, you can't just QB sneak every time or like flea flicker every time. The trick plays don't work if it's the only play you use. It's no longer a trick. So
Yeah.
cool in concept, and I see why you would do it. But in execution, we use it way too frequently, and people have the playbook on us. And that is a coaching issue.
Yeah. No, that's a good pickup there. I mean, I feel like even that has to be situational too, because you can't do that on every team or even every line on a team because your defensive pairing against, let's say you have your third defensive pairing against their top line, and the top line is, I don't know, let's just say it's the Avalanche top line. Are you getting away with that type of defense against that line every situation? Yeah.
You're going to
So
get burned by the stars in the league doing that.
exactly. So I mean, that's cool that you picked up on that. Like I've kind of noticed it happening, but I didn't know what the purpose of that was. So I'm
The
glad that you brought this up.
one issue is that they also don't always know when to do it. So there was one time I think we got scored on, and it might have been during the Anaheim game that I was watching, and I can pull back up my my screen to really give a better visual of what happened. So we had Darlene, I'll make him D1, right?
Yeah.
Darlene was like here-ish, and we had a forward with the puck here and a forward there, and then it was Dylan Cousins who was D2. So this was from a real game. This happened. I watched it and was incredibly disappointed. The forward two, well, let's say he has the puck right now, and he's pushing into the zone. Dylan Cousins is behind the play. But because they're told that D1 actually picks up the guy on the other side, Darlene wanted to pick up this guy and have Dylan Cousins pick up this guy. Now, if you can see how like this is laid out, you can see that the issue with this is Dylan Cousins is behind the play. Darlene's waving him over. Darlene is telling him, get over to F2. And instead of being able to get to F2, Dylan Cousins is giving up a breakaway because they've been told that this is how we're defending the rush. They aren't always fully grasping the situation and are instead just trying to play to the system. And the system says Darlene picks up this F1 who's coming into the zone so that they can't make the pass across. But in doing so, they gave away a clear-cut breakaway, and we ended up dropping a goal on a breakaway. And it was like, it's just not
it's idiotic.
Yeah, it's counterproductive, right? The situational awareness of like having a guy behind you, he's not going to be able to get to the forward entering the zone.
Yeah.
And it's against the instinct of how you play hockey, right? If you're in the situation where it's basically a 2-on-1, you're trying to stop the passer, so it's not even inherently wrong. Exactly. But you more shift to the middle and you say, at any moment I could approach you and stop your shot, even though I'm mostly going to cut off an angle to a pass. But you have to play that middle ground. You can't just say, here, have a free breakaway like they did. Otherwise, you're not making the shooter think about what they're doing. Like when they have too many options and you have the opportunity to both cut down their angle and cut down the pass, then it becomes harder. Then they take it either to the outside to take a shot, which is easier for the goaltender as well, or they have to force a pass through you, which isn't a like 100% play.
Exactly. I mean, you just want to take away at least half the net for the goaltender so he can focus on one thing. And I mean, just you writing out that play right there just shows how like asinine it is. I mean, that makes no sense. Like, and to have Dylan Cousins, love Dylan Cousins. I don't know if I want him chasing after a guy that's going to be going on a breakaway, to be honest with you. So, no, I mean, that's interesting. And I wonder why that's something they haven't addressed yet, just because, like you mentioned, the way defense has been played in the NHL and how every other team has been playing defense in the NHL consistently works. Why are we reinventing the wheel here overall? I mean, like you said, do it every once in a while, that's fine. But to do it all the time, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's a good pickup.
I think to make it the way that you primarily counter the rush is no longer helpful once other teams have your playbook, and they do.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, well, hopefully that's something that they work on during the All-Star break. I don't think teams are allowed to practice, though, so
I don't know what the rules are.
Yeah, I know a lot of players go on vacation. I don't know. I think maybe they get like 2 days before to start practicing,
Right.
if I recall. So I don't know. Maybe they can get that change in, or they can figure it out. Maybe hopefully, Donnie Meatballs is watching the show right now, and he's like, "Oh shoot, maybe I'll bring Sammy Saucy Mitts onto the staff and can run our defense right now."
Yeah, I don't think you'd want me running the defense, but I wouldn't say no to the position. I mean, who would? It's every fan's dream to be associated with the performance of their team, but
that's right. Until it turns on you.
Yeah, until people are calling for who's the defensive coach? We need to get rid of that guy, and then it's me, and I'm sad about that. But
it's a kid who hasn't even graduated college yet. He's running our defense right now. So yeah, appreciate you bringing that on, Sam. We'll have to bring that more to the show every week when you pick on stuff. So yeah. Appreciate it. So yeah, if there was anything else, do you have anything else to talk about on the show at all?
No. I mean, we went over the games that were played. We went over some rumors around the league. We talked about how our defensive structure, or how we defend on the rush. We don't have any games upcoming, so I mean, there's going to be one game we'll be talking about because it will be during our next stream. But I don't think we need to really get into that because we'll be talking about it live.
Yeah. Oh, you don't want to talk about the All-Star game at all? Go over the competition and skills?
I don't personally watch the All-Star game. Do you?
No, I don't think I've watched the All-Star game maybe 5+ years. Maybe in like high school I watched it, but I haven't watched it since. So I'll pass on that. But yeah, in the chat, Mike is all for you being our defensive coach for the Sabres. So Sam, put your application in. I'm sure they're accepting pretty soon. So put your name out there, and we'll be good to go. So yeah, next week, I don't know how much we're going to be talking Sabres wise. We'll have the game going on, but we're not going to really. I doubt we're going to have any updates. I'd be very surprised. So yeah, join us next week for maybe what's going to be a solely Dallas Star game where it's just going to be reactions to it. But yeah,
maybe that's fun and unique. It's not something that we've done every week, because normally when we have those Tuesday games, we have something to talk about other than the game.
So yeah, I'll probably this is going to be me during next show. Oh yeah, I mean, you should have played defense there. You should have checked that guy. Not even looking at the camera. So
you can pay more attention to how they defend the rush.
That's right. That's gonna be everyone's homework next week. Is let's watch them. Let's watch their defensive scheme right there, and we'll give Sam his kudos. So yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining the show. If you have any topics that you want us to talk about next week, leave that in the comments, and I'm sure one of us will be able to hop on and check on. But besides that, like I mentioned, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, Nickel City Mafia. Even though the Bills season is over, they're still talking Bills football over there. I know they have the AFC Summit going on too as well while our show's going on. So hop on and watch them. But besides that, everybody, hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next week for the Stars game.
Bye.